So I mentioned the neck earlier for the swing, and just briefly wanted to touch on that now. There's largely two head positions. What we tend to teach to beginners, so that there's less things for them to consider while they're developing these movements, is to look forwards. In terms of proprioception, the room isn't moving, you're moving relative to it, but you've got a fixed point of focus. So as you flex at the hips, you look forward, which basically means that when standing you're looking up, and then as you return, so what's happening is you're here, 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 here. As a beginner, I recommend that, because what will often happen with beginners that you tell, imagine the neck brace or the tennis ball or the apple under the chin. When you tell them to do that, what often happens is they start to dig a trench. So the kettlebell will go kind of right through the floor, or they'll round at the spine, because what tends to happen is the body follows the head. And this is why for many, many years we were told when you squat to have head up, chest up, and down we go. And I'm going to change that, because what I want you to consider is Olympic weightlifting, which I took up at around the age of 34. I got pretty good at it, 4 masters titles as a British weightlifter over 35, and also a couple of British and world records in single arm lifting and various other tricks and antics. The Chinese are well aware of how the neck position, neutral spine, actually affects the posterior chain in terms of the integrity of the hamstrings. Now, if you look at a lot of older videos, when people snatch, they're up. Chinese, looking at the floor. When they jerk, instead of up, forwards, they're looking at the floor. Look at, so what, it's 2019 now, so if you're watching this in 5 years' time, it may have all changed. But if you look at the Olympic lifting for women, I literally think that 90 to 95% of winners and record holders are Chinese. And if you look at the way they lift, all of them adopt that neck brace position, where even with a snatch, they're catching here instead of here. And this is very important. I'll tell you why. This is tested. This isn't just some theory I've got and I'm throwing it out there because I don't like what PTs have been taught years ago. I got people to start to lift with a neutral neck. They added 15 kilograms to their back squat by doing this instead of this. Another chap that was working swing intervals with a 32 kilogram went from this to this, and he doubled the volume, 100%. He doubled his volume because the body was structurally stronger and didn't give out so quick. So, a word of caution. Get the technique right, get your balance, get your posture, get your hip fold, get your breathing, get your core bracing, retract your shoulders, let the weight swing under. Looking for, as I'm now looking at you, stand, stand. So we're looking forwards, It's not optimal, but think of it as the stabilizers on your bike. And when you can ride, they come off. Because what we've now got to do is eventually, imagine a triangle, your 2 feet and then a point about, ideally, arm's reach and drop, so about 2 to 3 feet in front of you. That triangle is where you will look on the downswing. So your head, instead of being here, will now be here, nice and neutral, hopefully, or as neutral as I can get it, considering I had a serious car crash about 24 years ago and have never fully recovered from it. Needs a serious clunk back into place, I feel, or a good fall down a flight of stairs, who knows. Get to this after you've mastered the movement, and now the neck is the only thing to adjust, because what I've seen time and again with beginners is they go for that neutral and they'll start to round at the upper body, or even they'll start to lose balance, because what's happened is when you've got a fixed point, so I'm looking at a piece on the wall behind me. So if you were swinging facing where I am, you maybe look for this part on a handle. You'd get a relatively small point that you would stare at, and you wouldn't lose focus on that as you go up and down, up and down. And what happens is that's one less thing for you to worry about that can potentially go wrong. Eventually, when you've got everything else up to a good level, that now remains neutral and you stand. And that will serve you massively, not just for squats, not just for swings, not just for cleans, for snatches, even for deadlifts, for power cleans, for jerks, for overhead. It's an absolute game changer. And I'll tell you why. If you've ever watched World's Strongest Man, how many of them farmers walk? Like this. Joking aside, none of them. They pack themselves in nice and tight. And it's exactly the same, because what you've got to remember is we've got extremely long levers that are great for movement. But because we're quite mobile, we sacrifice strength. 50 pounds of weight, no problem. 50 pounds of weight, you got some hope there? So consider, when everything's neutral, packed and tight, we're stronger. As soon as there's a weakness, all of a sudden now we're trying to fire a cannon from a proverbial canoe. We need to be structurally sound, nice and strong. And a lot of that is basically understanding angles, bracing, force transfer, balance and everything else, all of the little bits of biomechanics that help us. As a beginner, this isn't that important to you, but if you get one take home from this video, start with a neutral vision, looking at the same place every time, and over time, look at the floor, look in front. Look at the floor, look in front. Once you've got the hinge and the stand, okay? And I hope that helps you.